Poppy and Ntsako. We're about to get into one of many Women's Month conversations this afternoon right here on The Upside. And the conversation this afternoon, the real cost of women's leadership. I'd like to chat to you really just in essence what this is going to unpack, because we are celebrating Women's Month and we're shining the spotlight on the achievements of women who continue to lead as well as break barriers across every sector. So more women are stepping into executive roles, boardrooms and leadership roles. This is happening more than ever before, but many still face challenges that are not always visible. So to chat to us this afternoon and to unpack this, the following woman who we are delighted to have on Channel Africa. Executive Leadership Strategist, Dr. Siphiwe Mbata, the founder of SWM Leadership Institute and an advocate for inclusive African leadership. Welcome to you, Doctor. Also in the mix with our panel is, of course, Sarah Norcross, who's the friend of The Upside, but she is, of course, Vice President and General Manager of Novo Nordisk South Africa, who brings a global leadership experience in healthcare and patient access. And then, of course, we have an author, communication specialist and ocean advocate, Veriska Devita, whose career demonstrates the power of purpose-driven leadership and creating impact across different industries. Good afternoon, ladies. Welcome to The Upside.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for having us.
Oh, so delighted to be chatting about leadership and just exactly unpacking what it involves to rise to the top in corporate and wherever you are. It doesn't necessarily have to be in corporate. So maybe we will start with Dr. Siphiwe Mbata just to kick things off right here on Channel Africa with our panel discussion. Doctor, can you chat to us about some of the challenges you faced when you were, sort of mapping out your career and rising within the ranks in the work that you do?
Yeah, well, thank you very much for having me. So over and above the challenges, so I think for me, one of the most difficult things that I experienced was around the legitimacy, finding a voice and keeping it, and also just, being visible. So a lot of the challenges for me then became really a passion project. And that's really why I then turned this challenge into my PhD study. And so today I've got an internationally published study where I dive into these dynamics. I talk about what happened. I actually got an opportunity to interview 25 executive right through to middle management leaders who are Black and female. And we spoke about those dynamics in the context of South Africa, the country, and of course, the dynamics of the cultural dynamics as well when you look at the African context. So looking forward to unpack that. But I think it was really just playing that role of saying, I would like to form part of the solution and really being the change that I seek in the corporate spaces.
Sarah, I want to bring you into this one because, we were chatting, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, about the new tech innovations within the healthcare industry. And, you being a woman in an executive position, leading some of those innovations, how do you sort of prove the competence of women in leadership, especially for innovation? Because whenever something new happens, we almost expect a male to be the one at the forefront. So how have you positioned yourself as competent for such a role?
Firstly, good afternoon, everyone. I feel very privileged to be surrounded by this panel of ladies today. So thank you for inviting me. It's a great question. And I think just alluding to what the doctor said earlier, one of the challenges I feel that we face more as women is that underestimation as a woman. Where, as you say, there's an expectation that you go into a setting and men are more accomplished. I had an example recently where I was at an event and I was asking the gentlemen at the event what they did, and I was, inquiring as to what they were doing and how that worked. And then someone in the group said to me, "You must feel so impressed to be surrounded by such accomplished men."
Wow.
And then everyone asked me what I did, and then they are, and I said, "Well, what do you think I do?" And they said, "Oh, you're very nice. You probably do something with people, right?"
Sarah.
Which is that conclusion, and that's when I first heard the term pink collar workers, which are marketing ladies, HR ladies, comms, who are brilliantly, highly capable individuals and professions, but there's an assumption, as you say, that as a female, these are the types of roles you're doing. There's an assumption that men are more accomplished, and as female coming into those places, have you earned your place in the room? And that was the perception I walked into just a month ago. So you're right, we do face this. And so it's an interesting one because, you know, you have to learn to use your voice. The doctor said this really, really well. Be comfortable to be visible, be comfortable to have a voice in that space, because to be honest, we are accomplished. We have a right to be in that room. And once you use your voice, people will very quickly see that and very quickly hear that. You just have to have the confidence to take that first step.
Let's come to you, Veriska, as an author, communication specialist, and someone who works in different industries and creates impact in those industries. Maybe you can chat to us about what the common thread is across the industries when it comes to women in leadership and what the challenges seem to be.
In the publishing and in the PR and communications industries, there are many women leaders. Be it in the publishing role and in the managerial role. And what I've also noticed, because it's a creative field, being an author, being a writer, creating products that speak to various audiences, women have really created a wonderful niche and platform for themselves. And many women actually wear different hats. So a female author will be a writer, she'll be a mother, she'll be a doctor, a lawyer, a public relations practitioner such as myself. And because we are so good at juggling all these balls, we are able to do all of these things so well. And as such, in these industries, women are deeply respected, which is quite refreshing.
Dr. Simpiwe, thank you so much for that, Veriska. Dr. Simpiwe, I want to come to you because I think the one thing that's coming up in all of your responses is a sense of community. Because when, Sarah kind of noted, the element of still being asked these questions, even in 2026, Veriska speaking about the sense of community as well. Can we talk about what ways we are paving the way for the younger generation? So let's say in your office, you've already identified the mini Dr. Simpiwe, right? And, how are we mentoring them and mentoring young women to these places of leadership where they see themselves in that position without feeling imposter syndrome or experiencing already the barriers to entry that society is already laying on us?
Yeah. Thank you very much for that. So I think it's been key, and it's also an aspect that has been proven very well in my research, where despite these challenges, despite these barriers that continue to pull down the female leaders, what we found is that it actually started to cultivate a new generation of leaders, where female leaders more specifically care about bringing one up. So you lift as you rise.
Yes.
And so the mentorship aspect becomes a very key aspect of that, and the coaching element as well. So from time to time, and more often than not, what we started hearing in those conversations were around, I have a mentee, and this is somebody young that I am grooming, and also in my organization, in my area of expertise, what I'm doing is I've got some learners that I'm grooming, learners that are working under me. And in there, I'm making sure that I'm making a conscious effort, and I'm actually taking charge of the pipeline to ensure that a younger Dr. Wendy, for example, comes through and fills the space, and also support them through the challenges, because you've been there, done that, and you've gotten through some of the most difficult challenges. You then can sort of carve and assist in shaping what the next generation sort of faces. Although what we've also found with that similarly is that there are some females that sort of want to preserve themselves, so some self-preservation coming in there, where you really just want to protect your turf. And part of it is really just around some of the trauma that you experience when, of course, you have your issues of discrimination. You tend to want to, keep to yourself. You tend to sort of want to maintain a level of, peace within the environment. And really, because you fought so hard at the level that you're at, you just want to have some peace in your head around you've done it and you just want to work towards rising. However, like I say, that is changing, and you're starting to see a rise of a very different kind of leader, and which then makes it even more worthwhile to say, females out there are legit in the boardrooms, and it's time for us to start occupying more spaces and existing even on a more broader scale than we currently are.
The voice there of Dr. Siphiwe Wendy Mbata, founder of SWM Leadership Institute. It is 4:30. We're going to take a quick break to get into sports and econ news and continue the discussion just after that. It is 4:30. Time for sports now with Rachel Makura. It is 4:45 on Channel Africa, and we're continuing our discussion right here on the upside on women who lead, how they lead, and the various challenges they faced. Back with us again, of course, our guests who are joining us at Channel Africa 1. You can catch all the action there. We're still with Dr. Siphiwe Wendy Mbata, Sarah Norcross, who's the Vice President and General Manager of Novo Nordisk, and also author, communication specialist Veriska De Vita. And also joining us now is broadcaster, entrepreneur Khanyisa M, who works in women's leadership identity along with personal growth. Khanyisa, maybe because you just joined us now, we can just quickly introduce you to everything that we're chatting about, because I want to explore the identity of the woman who leads. So maybe chat to us about what you are seeing in the work that you do. What is the identity shift that needs to happen for women to believe in themselves in those leadership positions?
Sure. Thank you for having me, and thank you for having me join you, ladies. One of the most important things that we are seeing, especially in this era of the shift in the workplace is also shifting how we view ourselves and how we lead and how we operate in the workplace. And one of these things that we have now started to see is that women have been leading so much with the work of doing and not the work of being. And so what we are now seeing as a shift is people that are starting to question the strength that has always been something they lead with. Things like your high functioning, your perfectionism, and the things that actually in the past made us leaders, made the KPI sheets look good. But now we are getting into a place where we now need to think about our true identity. Who are we without the titles? Who are we without the work of doing? And now embodying the work of being just you and not what you've achieved, what you can do, because that's now being eroded in the workplace at the moment.
You know what's so interesting about what you're saying? You're reminding me of one of the best CEOs in the world, Whitney. She is the founder of Bumble, the dating app. And she on LinkedIn the other day was posting about her husband, and her 2 kids and her dog, right? And then she was like, this is Whitney. Yeah. And it really sparked a huge debate about women outside of the careers that they're in. Because culturally, there has been a lot of stamps placed that as a woman, you must leave your career at the door. It's almost like it's not welcomed in the construct of relationships or marriage or family. But now, how do we incorporate the balance now between the personal and, the career growth and kind of merging the two women together?
I think people have always gotten it wrong in terms of wanting, especially women, to show up as the professional before they show up as the person. Because actually, the person you want to lead your company or to lead your team is a person you can trust. So can I trust you? Do you have integrity? Do you say what you will do and do what you say you will do? Right? Is the inner core of who you are ethical? Is it something I can trust? And so a lot of times, the things that make us great leaders, great articulators, are in the core of who we are outside of the workplace. And I think for the longest time, the system has robbed itself of actually finding really good leaders from knowing the woman for who she is and not what she can do. Because in the core of who she is where you will find who is going to make the decision about your company when the purple has hit the fan. And there is a really critical decision that needs to be done, that person is going to take it from the core of who they really are. For example, if you have an executive who is in business development, you are likely to know whether the person is going to bribe for a project or not, because of the core of who they are, the core of their faithfulness in their relationship, the core of how they mother their children, the principles they believe in, and the things that they lead with. So we have actually robbed ourselves by looking at women as doers and showing up apart and away from who they are, away from the workplace. And I think that's about to change. A lot of more leaders are now cracking the code and realizing that you need the woman as an individual,
Yes.
as the being,
Yes.
and not the doer.
Thank you so much, Khanyisa.
Yeah.
Dr. Simphiwe, maybe let's come to you now, because I have a question around sensitizing the rest of the people around the actual leader, because I also think that is some kind of challenge for women in leadership as well. How do workplaces do that when they put someone in a high ranking role, but they haven't sort of sensitized everyone else who they have to serve? How does it usually work, and what are some of the practices that need to be done in order for that person going into that position to have somewhat of a soft landing?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think that's an important question, right? Because therein lies the difference on whether that female leader is going to stay and remain in that position.
Yeah.
So we're still finding that there's a gap, or there's still issues of representation. And it's mostly because now, once you're in, you find it's actually not your while. You are really not the individual you want to be in there, and therefore you exit. And so one of the key things that I think organizations are starting to do, but I think could really benefit from doing more of, is around having the discussion about inclusivity. Inclusivity, or, they used to call them diversity sort of committees or diversity meetings, but it has changed now. The global terminology is about talking inclusivity. And inclusivity means understanding and creating value and demonstrating that there's value in diverse teams, that every single person that is in the organization is there to create a particular value. And more especially if you put in a leader, you need to speak about what you have identified as a key value that this individual is going to bring. And you start to sensitize the workplace around that. I don't think it is a good idea for women to get special attention or special focus. That's not what we're asking for. But I think what we're asking for is that corporates should be open to demonstrate that there is room, number one. And number two, corporates should open themselves up to conversations, real tough conversations around the systematic issues of discrimination that exist. And therein lies then how you unbundle some of those discussions and you have more acceptance. But I don't believe it's a one size fit all, but there's many interventions, one of which is how women are currently getting in. Recruitment needs to change. The way in which female leaders are being managed needs to change. But just because of the layered challenges they experience, because the intersectionality of race, their gender, and as well as class is what really works against them as a force of discrimination. And so if we understand that and we have those discussions in a broader term, then we're able to sensitize everybody around the challenges, and we start to form allies on how we keep these leaders in the organizations.
Speaking about the change management, aspect of women leadership, there's a particular term that has been coined called the glass cliff. And it was a study done by a number of publications, The Guardian, Forbes, PBS, and they were speaking about how companies elect women into leadership in times of crisis, almost setting them up for failure. And interestingly enough, it came back that 86% of those women actually do not fail. The company does not fail under her leadership. Sarah, I want us to talk about the impact of leading in times of crisis as a woman, especially because your character is tested, your growth is tested as well. And I think to a certain degree, people are now looking to you as an all savior of the particular company.
So if we're not saviors at home, we're saviors in the office as well. And I think it's a really interesting point. And I'm just reflecting on even being prior to that position and wanting to be seen as someone who could be a person in the role to deal with crisis and to make those tough decisions when they need to be done. And I remember having a conversation, even in talks for this role, where the perception was, is Sarah too nice to be able to make those decisions? Is Sarah too nice to be able to deal with those situations? And I remember the whole thing where, was a man asked the same question? Or is it just from the fact that I'm a female that you're assuming I can't be in those tough situations and having to make those tough decisions as well, and having to deal with that as a factor that I know my male colleagues didn't have to deal with, and I guess having to prove myself first rather than being given the benefit of the doubt. But like you say, I do feel that there's a shift in women's leadership that my great panel peers are talking to right now, that we are seeing that there's a different perspective that females are bringing because of the broader role that we take on in society before we're even in these positions. We are daughters, we are sisters, we are mums, we are wives, we are taking on far more responsibility, juggling far more in our general day-to-day life, having to deal with natural crises every single day, even as something as, I can't find my child's shoe, what am I going to do, how are they going to get to school? So there's natural crises that we're having to deal with in all settings that come to us, that we are naturally building through. And I think we just bring a different perspective in these situations. I see with female leadership, I see a higher EQ that comes in, a higher degree of intuition. That means that we consider, I believe, a broader aspect when we're considering how to manage these situations, not just the bare black and whites of what we're facing, but the knock-on implications, so that we have a broader consideration when we're dealing with these. And I think that just life is preparing us better to be able to manage these situations far more than we probably realize we're capable of.
Powerful stuff. Sarah Norcross there, the Vice President and General Manager of Novo Nordisk. Maybe let's wrap up by highlighting, everyone can have a go at this, just briefly chat to us, as Sarah has just mentioned, some of the qualities and the characteristics we should be celebrating in women leaders across the board. Maybe name one or two, and even if you give us an example, we can take that as well. Verita, I'll start with you, if you can just give us a shot there.
So I think what is working so well currently within female-led industries like the publishing industry is that issues that are beautifully and uniquely female, for example, perimenopause, menopause, childbirth, postpartum depression, has all been brought to light for the broader audience to understand, and it actually becomes a wonderful eye-opener for people to better understand the uniqueness of the different stages of womanhood and girlhood. And I think that this brings a lot of nuance and new understanding to different industries. Different areas of the workplace, where there is a new understanding, a better understanding, a deeper understanding of what it means to be a woman. And these for me are really wonderful things, and this is how all art, be it the written word, visual art, media in itself, is a wonderful way of bringing new perspectives into the open and to allow everybody to better understand each other.
Thank you so much. Dr. Spiro Wendy-Mbata, we're going to give you the final word on this. Just your comment on what we've just mentioned.
Yeah, so I think for me, the sheer ability to cultivate resilience and inclusive leadership. This is a group of leaders that are coming in and really wanting to make a difference and changing the way in which things are being done. They're bringing their whole self into the organization. You are going to take them as they are. You're going to listen to them because they will make you listen to them. And really just bringing an energy of not, of freshness, and that staleness in the boardroom starts to dissipate, and we start to see fresh organizations that really start to address the future and what we're looking for.
Thank you so much, so succinctly put. We appreciate your time, ladies. Onwards and upwards. Dr. Sipiwe Wendy Mvata, Khanyisa M, as well as Sarah Norcross, and of course our author communication specialist, Veriska Devita, joining us this afternoon for our roundtable discussion on the challenges that women in leadership face.